Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to continue our study, and this time we are going to talk about radicals. So I hope you got your calculators because we're going to use them. First of all, square means to multiply a number by itself. For example, 5 to the exponent of 2. 5 is called the base. The exponent of 2 is also called squared. That's why you may hear people say 5 squared or 5 to the exponent of 2, sometimes even 5 to the power of 2. Square root of a number means to find the value that when multiplied by itself is equal to a given number. For example, the square root of 64 is 8. That's because 8 times 8 is equal to 64. A perfect square is the product of a number and itself. For example, 12 times 12 is 144. 144 would be what's called the perfect square. Please note, the inverse of perfect square is square root. Inverse is another way of saying opposite. Since 12 squared, or 12 times 12, equals 144, then the square root of 144 is 12. So square root. Here's some symbols that you should know in reference to square root. First of all, the square root sign, which is called the radical sign. The number that's under the radical sign, we call the radicand. When you see a positive, negative sign in front of the radical sign, they're looking for both answers for that square root, or both roots answers. Sometimes you'll see a negative sign in front of the radical sign, and they're looking for just the negative answer only. Sometimes you'll see no sign, and they're looking for the positive sign only, and that's usual when they'll say square root. So here's some examples, so let's give them a try. Find the value of the following. Square root of 16, and notice we want positive and negative values of the square root of 16. So I remember my times table. If you say 4, because 4 times 4 is 16, don't forget there's also a negative number that they're looking for as well. So if you say positive and negative 4, you are correct. Try this one. Square root of 100, but they want the negative value. So what times what would give you 100? It's got to be the same number. If you said 50, 50 times 50 is 2,500. Or if you said negative 50, that's still 2,500. I think you probably said negative 10. So it's negative 10 is the answer that they want, because 10 times 10 is 100, but they want the negative value of the square root. Here's another one. This time it's a fraction. And we haven't dealt with fractions yet, but now we can. So the square root of 36 over 16, and the square root of 36 I know is 6, and the square root of 16 would be 4, but notice I want a negative answer, so my answer is going to be negative, and let me type it over here, negative 6 on the top, which is what I'm doing it piece by piece, and then 4 on the bottom, and my answer will be negative 6 over 4. Again, I chose negative because they want the negative answer, and 6 times 6 is 36, 4 times 4 is 16. So that's the answer we want. Now this time they want the positive and negative answer of 1.69. Decimal now. So we're dealing with fractions, and now we're dealing with decimals. And I noticed that 1.69 reminds me of 169. And I know 13 times 13 is 169. So if I look at this one, I notice there are two numbers behind the decimal place. And I know my answer's got to be 13, but I'm going to pick 1.3 because 1.3 times 1.3 will give me two numbers behind the decimal point, and that'll be 69. And I'll have 1.69 as my answer. And remember, I got to put positive, negative. So there would be my answer, positive, negative 1.3. That was tough. Here's some more you can try on your own time. Find the values of the following: square root of 9, square root of 0, square root of 4 over 49, square root of 1.96. These are tough. Give them a shot. Perfect square at any number that is the square of a rational number. We talked about rational numbers in another video where they're whole numbers, positive, negative, integers, they're counting numbers, they're numbers that can be turned into fractions that repeat or terminate. They also can be decimals that repeat, so, or terminate. So we have a couple of examples here. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 0.49 is 0.7. Square root of 4 over 81 is 2 over 9. So here's some examples of numbers that are perfect squares that are happen to be rational. I'm going to now talk about a different type of radical, which is called the cube root. Cube root of a number is one of three equal factors of the number, where we have 3 radical 8. And that 3 has a name we're going to talk about, and it is equal to 2. 2 is the cube root of 8 because 2 times 2 times 2 is equal to 8. We call this cube root. So we say the cube root of 8 is equal to 2, or 2 to the third power, or 2 to the third, or 2 cubed is equal to 8. So we're going into cube roots now. Now we're looking for 3 factors that multiply by itself that gives you that number under the radical sign. Because 2 times 2 is 4, and then 4 times 2 is 8. So be careful. A lot of people get caught on that one. And as I mentioned before, there's a little number that's outside of the radical sign, and it's called the index number. It's an integer that indicates the power to be taken. This little number here, 3, that's called the index number. So 3 is like having telling what's the number, how many times we're multiplying by to get the number under the radical sign. So we would take 2 3 times to get the 8. So it's called the index number. Now let's get our calculators. So the index number indicated that the power to be taken, because sometimes we don't have a 3 there. We may have different numbers. Like here's a 5, for example. Here we have an index number of 5. We want the 5th root of 32. Well, it's going to be 2, and I'm going to show you how to get it on your calculator. So here's the TI-84 Plus graphing calculator. So if you have one of those, the first step you do is to type the index number, press the button called Math, and type 5. It'll show you this symbol, which is the symbol for nth root, and then type the radical n, the number on the inside of the square root sign, and then press enter. So let's get our calculator out and give it a try. So step 1, type 5, that's the index number, and let's make this a little bit larger if we can. Let's see, size. All right, and now press the math button. Here's the math button located right there. Now type number 5. 5 is located right there. Maybe I can show a screen or two. Number 5. And then type in your index, your number on the inside, your radicand, which is 32. And there's your answer of 2. So that's using the graphing calculator. Sometimes you don't have that calculator because we'll be using this calculator in class. And this is our TI-30X II solar powered calculator. And the steps are similar. Again, we're dealing with index numbers that are different than square root. So they could be varying, so to the nth power. So first thing we would do is type our index number. Press this time the button called second. Then we would type the exponent button. We would press that. And then type our radicand. And then press enter. So let's get our calculator for this one. And let's get a display on this one, large screen, so you can see it better. All right, so first step, type the index number, which was the 5. All right, and now press the second button. So notice second comes up there. You make sure you see it in your window. Now you got to press the exponent button, which gives you the little radical sign. If you're on the TI-30XB calculator, I'm on that one. That's a little newer than the other one. So you may see this symbol, or with a parenthesis if you're on the TI-30XII solar powered calculator. So you'll see that symbol, but with parenthesis. I don't have one. So now type in your radicand, and then press enter, and there's your value once again. And this is with our TI-30XII solar powered calculator. So 2 ways we did it with 2 different calculators, and we ended up getting the value, the 5th root of 32, which means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 32. And if you check it out, it is. So here's some numbers that you can play with on your own. Get your calculator and give it a shot and check out what you get. So I hope you got something out of this video. If you have questions, try to rewind the videotape, play it again. If I went too fast, write down questions. I'll be glad to bring them in the classroom and answer them for you. So I want to see you tomorrow with your questions. So good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.